We often hear that the postpartum period is challenging. This is true. It is filled with ups and downs. Navigating this transition to parenthood is not easy. This is why it is important to prepare for it, taking into consideration different components that would help to cope with challenges and obstacles that will emerge in it. Today, I'm talking with Alex James, a Toronto-based postpartum doula and nutritionist who recently gave birth to her first child. She will share with us how she's living her postpartum experience, which is doing very well so far, how she prepared for it, and how she's coping with challenges and how she's taking care of her mental health.
Hi, Alex.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for accepting to do this interview with me.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy.
I'm so happy to talk about this. It's a really exciting topic for me to talk about.
Yes. So actually, I thought about interviewing you since on my YouTube channel, usually, well, the people I've interviewed so far are people that had a little bit of challenges like during their postpartum period, like especially with postpartum mood disorder. But I was thinking, I want to do an interview where I interview someone who's actually having a good postpartum period and see like how and we know like it can happen to anyone like postpartum mood and anxiety disorder, but it's always good to hear like good experience as well and how we can prepare for this challenging period. Like even if we know that people can get a postpartum mood disorder, but some people don't, and then we can always prepare like for that postpartum period as well. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Super important. Yeah.
Yes. So first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Alex James, and you already mentioned this. I'm a postpartum doula. So I support people in the postpartum period. It's what I do professionally. And I have a background in as a holistic nutritionist as well. So I'm particularly interested in supporting people, nourishing people with good food to encourage healing after giving birth. Um, and yeah, I'm really inspired myself by traditional postpartum care practices around the world, which are it's very different than how it is here in Canada where we are. So that's me professionally. Personally, I am a mom. I'm a new mom to a 5-month-old. She just turned 5 months this past week, so that's really exciting. And I live in downtown Toronto, and I have a wonderful partner who's been amazing and supportive throughout everything. So yeah, that's me, very simply for now.
Oh, perfect. Um, just to start the interview, a few months ago, you shared a testimonial of your postpartum experience in the fourth trimester bodies project. You mentioned at 6 weeks postpartum that you were having a wonderful postpartum experience. And I'm quoting you, you said, I made it my goal from the beginning, from before I even got pregnant, to have an amazing postpartum experience. I'm curious to know, how do you define an amazing postpartum period? What makes it amazing according to you?
Okay, yeah. Well, for me, I define like what makes a postpartum period amazing for me is when the birthing parent um, is really honored and celebrated for all that they've gone through and accomplished in this whole process. So the birthing person is honored and celebrated, and rested and well fed. So it's kind of how I like to. That's kind of how I like to describe it. And for the non-birthing parent as well, and for the whole family, but in particular the person who's given birth. But yeah, it could apply for any type of family, adoptive families, whatever. But yeah, just really like honoring and celebrating that person, and having them feel just really nourished and taken care of and loved and supported, and eating good food and getting good rest. Yeah. So I mean, that's how I sort of speak about an amazing postpartum experience. But different people will have different ways of, you know, what's amazing for you. You might have a slightly different way of looking at it.
Yes.
So I like to ask people, like, what would be an amazing postpartum period for you?
Good.
Yeah.
That's a good way to approach, of course. And we always talk, I'm a postpartum doula too. And then, you know, I like
That's
to,
how we know each other.
yes, exactly.
We did our postpartum doula training together. That's how we know each other. Yeah.
And then we met like a few times, both professionals and
Yeah.
while meetings. So we got to know each other. And I did
Yeah.
come to visit you when you had your baby too. Like I think it was like a month or 2 months after you had your baby as well. I came to visit you and spend
You
some time.
did. It was so great. You brought me food, which was lovely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I always like to talk to clients too when I have the chance to meet with them before to prepare to have a postpartum plan, like to get ready and kind of ask them, like in the best, what would be your best postpartum experience? How can you prepare for that? So that brings me to my next question for you. Like, can you tell us how you prepare yourself for the best postpartum period possible?
Yeah, yeah. Um, there was a lot of things that I did. I mean, I looked at many different things. I looked at how I wanted to feed my baby, and I thought about how I might like to, what kind of sleeping arrangements I might like to have. I thought about what I would want to eat, and I just thought about what I wanted it to be like. And I did a lot of things. I made a lot of food. Being a nutritionist, I packed my freezer with all kinds of goodness to make it really easy for me to have good food, and for my partner to be able to just make that food for me, to warm it up for me. Um, I prepared for breastfeeding. Like, breastfeeding is something that was really important to me. I knew that it was going to be important to me, and so I actually asked a friend of mine who's breastfeeding if I could have some of her milk from her freezer as a backup, because that's just something that I thought to do, because I knew that it would stress me out, the thought of having to like go out and buy formula or something. That's just me personally. I did that. I gathered some different herbs and supplies for healing myself physically after, after pushing and delivering vaginally. I knew I would need some good herbs for a sitz bath, so I prepared all of that. What else did I do? I mean, I did some typical nesting things. Like, I did kind of make my home. I didn't worry about preparing the perfect nursery or anything like that for my baby. I just did what I could do to make my home a very relaxing, calming environment for me. And I think though, of everything that I did, the most important thing I did was just really get on the same page with my partner, who was going to be my main. And him and I were on the same page about like me just having a really, really good period of rest after giving birth. So the plan was that I was going to stay in bed and for like a week, 2 weeks, just to see how it goes and see how I feel. And he was fortunate enough to be able to get a few weeks off work, and I just stayed in bed. I mostly stayed in my bedroom and the bathroom for the first 10 days, pretty much. And he did everything else. He cooked all the food and brought it to me, and he would literally feed me as I was feeding the baby. He did all of the cooking and the cleaning and the shopping and the errands. So I'm really I think us having that clear understanding from the beginning, and having him on board with this is how it's going to go, was amazing.
Good.
And very
and
important.
I think it's so important to be on this. Yeah, and as you said, to be on the same page and kind of envision in advance things that could happen, like some things I would say challenges, but the fact, okay, we have meals to prepare, like she's going to be very tired, so how are we going to do, like, to make sure that she rests the most? So I think it's good to prepare, as you said, for things that might not go as well as we thought it could go, kind of,
Yeah.
or as well to think about roles and what we expect of each other during that period is so important.
And I also have like, I mean, I guess I'm very fortunate in that I have a very good network of like other doulas and other people that I know
Mm.
who like in the birth world here, like birth workers in Toronto who can support me. And so like, I already had like people lined up to call for when and if I needed them. You know what I mean? So like I had a good friend who's a lactation consultant, and I think I texted her like 7 hours after giving birth, you know. But I wasn't scrambling at the last minute going, okay, I need lactation help, got to try to find somebody, you know. Like I already had that relationship built ahead of time, um, you know, and I already knew like I got some craniosacral therapy for my baby because she needed it, and I already knew the person to call for that, so
Okay.
I wasn't stressed about these things because I was prepared for them, essentially. Yeah. I always say to people, like, it's not about, like, you don't have to have all the answers to everything before, like, you don't know what's going to happen and you don't have to have all the answers, but to know, like, to know who to reach out to when you do have issues, right? Like, that's the most important thing there. Like,
Yeah, kind of to build in advance like your resources toolkit, kind of like who
exactly,
I can.
like creating, exactly, having a toolkit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. How did your partner prepare for it, for the postpartum period?
Yeah, well, I think as I said, like we were just like we were both on the same page from the beginning, as I mentioned. Um, and interestingly, he was the one to tell me about because him and I actually lived in China many years ago, and when we lived there, we learned about the lying in period. That they have in China and in many other countries, right? Where the birthing parent really just rests in bed and everybody else comes and feeds them and takes care of them, but that like very strict period of just lying and resting, um, we discovered that, like he actually discovered that when we lived in China, and so he was the one to come to me and say, you are staying in bed after giving birth. Like, and I
Oh,
was like, great, yes, that sounds good to me. So I mean, very, very blessed and fortunate to have him. In terms of like how he prepared, I mean, it was really cute. He did a lot of nesting in the sense of like he like prepare home. Like he bought all of these like baby proofing supplies like way, way, way too early. And you know, like the baby gate for the stairs and like all of these things. He basically, yeah, made everything like tried to make our home like baby friendly essentially, and that was his way of nesting and like preparing mentally for the idea of a baby coming into the home. Yeah.
okay. So very, very interesting, and I think the fact that you said that he knew also what a good postpartum period could look like. So we kind of you
Yeah.
from what I understand, you and him had the same vision of what you wanted it to look like. So which is very important.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Very good. How is your postpartum experience now, 5 months after giving birth?
Yeah, I would say it's still been great. Certainly things have changed a lot. I mean, after he went back to work and everything, it's
Yeah.
like faced with this reality of like, okay, it's just me and this baby. And I mean, I'm privileged. Like I have the privilege of being able to stay home and be her sole care provider and you know, exclusively breastfeed her. And I get that that's like a privilege. And it's wonderful. And it is very tiring. It's a lot of work. But it's been going great. It's been interesting for me to like what do I want to say? Like to maintain, like I'd like to maintain a sense of like a professional identity as well as this new identity of being a parent. I mean, I think that how people integrate the experience of becoming a mother, like I think that that looks different for everybody, and I'm very much like in the midst of like trying to figure that out. Like, how do I how do I integrate like being this new identity of motherhood into my life? I know that many people have like a salaried job, and then you have like a mat leave, and then a return to work date, and you're getting your daycare set up. For a lot of people, that's how it goes. In my situation, being self-employed, I don't have any kind of like specific mat leave time. I have a lot of flexibility. There's pros and cons there. I don't have like a mat leave income coming in. So it's stressful, but I just mean like I am still thinking of myself like as an entrepreneur and like my business, but she's my sole focus during the day. So it's like, I don't know, it's figuring all that out. And I think everybody probably goes through this kind of thing, like, like as I said, just kind of matrescence.
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly where I had to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks different for everybody, right? As I mentioned, depending on what your circumstances are. So for me, it's kind of like I'm juggling this question of like, how do I have both things? How do I be a mother, professional, and everything else, all of my other identities,
Yeah. Yes, and even like in my own experience, I did have a mat leave of 1 year because I had a job. I was a consultant in education. But even with knowing that after a year I would go back to work, there was still a transition. Like, and there was still that same thing as you, kind of trying to think, how am I going to be a mom and working full time? And my work was quite challenging as well. Like I was traveling, and then I had to sometimes spend some night in a hotel, and my husband would be home with my son. But it was a transition, trying to balance that famous thing that we think about, balancing, kind of being a parent and then working too. So I mean, it wasn't perfect, but I mean, we thought about it. I had as you said, like a good relationship with my husband. So we were on the same page, and we were preparing more like, okay, I'll go back to work. That means I would be traveling more or leaving early in the morning, and some evenings would come back a bit later. So I think discussion and communication is so important, like to navigate that transition. Yes. But and even with my second maternity leave, like with my second, there was still some thinking about. I find it I think even harder the second time to go back to work. I remember the first morning I dropped her off at daycare, and I know she was crying, and I know like the transition was a little bit difficult for her. And then I remember going to work and feeling so torn apart, kind of. Yes, I'm going back to a work that I enjoy. Like I really like my job, but at the same time, my heart, was with my baby. And I cried the first day. Like I cried. I had a colleague that showed me a picture of her granddaughter. It was like, oh, this is so cute, and I started crying because it's like, oh, my baby's in daycare. Kind of like, so it was a time of thinking how I can be a good mom, but at the same time, like good at work at the same time, but how to navigate that transition, all those feelings that comes of being a mom or parent, and then actually be at work at the same time, like how to navigate both. And I think it's important to, I think at work, I had a very good work environment where my boss and my colleagues were very understanding too, and knew, like, it's not easy, or they've been there too, they had kids as well, so they've been through that transition, so they were very caring, kind of say, hey, we understand it's not easy at first, but they were supportive. And I think
Yeah.
that's good to be surrounded by people in that transition that
Yeah.
understand the transition and we can talk to.
Yeah. I mean, there we go again. Like we keep coming back to this theme of like making sure that your people in your life, your
Yes.
community, your support, like it is all there, and supportive and understanding. And yeah. And sometimes you have to make hard decisions around like, um, maybe you don't want certain people in your life at anymore, like, or in this time of your life, um, I mean, that's another thing that I'll say, like, about when I was thinking about like having a bit of a lie-in period, like where I was just like resting in bed in the very beginning. I knew that I probably wouldn't want a lot of visitors. So I also uh, warned people. Like I talked to my family ahead of time, saying like, "Don't worry, like I'm going to let you know when the baby comes, but I will let you know when I'm ready for
Mm-hmm.
visitors, and that might be like after a week." So I let people know ahead of time so that I wasn't like bombarded with people knocking on my door or anything like that. So that's something else that I did very
Well,
practically.
and I think that, yeah, that's very good.
And
And
it's hard for people sometimes to like have those boundaries, but yeah, I just was really clear about like this is what I want. Like I need that space. Yeah.
mm,
I need the space to just like be with my family and like bond as a new unit, and when I'm ready, then I can like open up our circle a little bit more.
sure. Yeah. Um, you talked about it a little bit, like the challenging challenge of being in a new transition and kind of try to find a new identity. But
Yeah.
you said also in that same interview that I quoted you that you said it hasn't been all the you said it hasn't all been a walk in the park. So you've been experiencing some obstacles and challenges. Like you said, you had an amazing postpartum experience, but in your definition of amazing, that doesn't mean that we cannot go through some challenges or obstacles. So
Yes. Yeah,
how,
absolutely.
yeah. So what
Yeah,
are your,
there's all the things that yeah can happen. Like I mean physically speaking, I mean I had like a few physical like typical things that can happen. Like just what am I like, like just figuring out how to feed was a little bit difficult. And this is coming from, someone who's like, I've supported many people with breastfeeding, but being on the other side of it
mm-hmm,
and learning how to do it myself, even though I knew all the things to do, there's still this other little person that needs to learn how to do it, right?
yep.
And it's like working together with her. So yeah, so learning to breastfeed was not without its challenges. But again, I had people lined up that I contacted for support,
Mm-hmm.
and I took care of those issues like right away. Um, and then just like physical recovery from birth. But again, I had everything set up so that I could do like the sitz baths, and I could like get enough rest to like rest my body after giving birth. um I think, yeah, sleep. I mean, everybody talks about sleep all the time. Sleep was challenging, the most challenging in the first few days, like the first week or so for me. Overall, actually, sleep has been really great in the last 5 months. Fingers crossed, it's been amazing. But the first week was challenging because like I wanted to have her sleeping next to me. Like bed sharing was something I was very interested in doing. And again, even being somebody that knows all the things to do to make bed sharing safe, I still felt anxiety, or like I still felt nervous about it. So then I would try to put her in the bassinet, and then I would feel anxious having her away from me and hearing her over there in the bassinet. So I was like this back and forth trying to figure out, like, just trying to get comfortable so that, you know, I could get that sleep, and she could, like, the sleep was was a bit tricky at first to figure out. But again, having really good support, people that I trusted to come in and help me figure it out was everything. And then just practice, having a partner that was on board. And then we figured it out. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and emotionally, it's been really interesting. I mean, I didn't really fall in love with my baby until around like 6 weeks.
Thing.
I loved her. Like, I thought she was super cute, and I was like happy to just be with her and take care of her, right? And then I would say around the 6-week mark is when I was like, oh, I'm just like actually like in love with you.
Wow.
But what was interesting there is that the love that I felt for her and feel for her still is not without worry and anxiety. You know, it's like, I love this little human being so much, and I don't want anything to happen to her, right?
Yeah.
So it's constantly juggling, like, I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yes, totally. Like, I think there is that. We're so involved in the lives of our kids. We love them so much, but I don't know if that's how you feel, but sometimes I feel like I'm scared to have those feelings and feel joy, because I'm like, what if something happens and I'm going to be heartbroken?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I've read something in, I don't know if you've read of Brené Brown.
Yeah.
Yes, she talks about sometimes that we don't want to feel joy, or in the moment where we feel that joy, all of a sudden we have that thought that is coming as, oh no, what if she dies, or what if, you know, something bad happens, and then it kills our joy. It totally kills our joy. And I think that one thing that she says that we can do in those moments is to feel gratitude, kind of to allow ourselves to feel the joy, and at the same time think about what we're thankful for, like what we're grateful for. I think that's what, something around that line, like that she said. I try to think about what we're grateful for to keep like that joyful moment. It's normal. It's normal to have. I think it's normal to have those thoughts. We love them so much, like those thoughts of bad stuff coming to them. But I think that but it's normal, but at the same time we don't need to stay in that state of mind, because then we'll be anxious all the time. I think we have to look at things that we're grateful for, what is working, and try to.
And I think for me too, like, it's been, I wouldn't say that there's anything to do about it. Like, for me, because there's always going to be, what I realize is that, like, okay, I'm a parent now for the rest of my life. And the worry about her isn't necessarily going to go away, right? Like, it's always going to be there on some level, right? Because I'm always going to be concerned for her and looking out for her, you know, looking out for my kid. And so I haven't really necessarily done anything about that. I've just kind of like allowing all of my emotions to just be as they are, like seeing them, acknowledging them. And I'm just kind of like learning to live with this new like experience of like, okay, there's always going to be a certain amount of worry about her, and that's just always going to be there. And just kind of like I don't know, like
acknowledge it, like
acknowledging it, and not worrying about the worry, like not getting anxious about being anxious, if that
Anxious.
makes sense, you know? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think that you get it right. The fact that those feelings will always be there. And I think in your situation, did you say that when you kind of prepare for your postpartum, you kind of knew that you would feel like that, or that it could be a possibility that you will not fall in love right away with your baby? That could happen. Like,
Yeah.
were you expecting that at the, like?
I absolutely, like, I knew that, well, for sure I knew that I wouldn't necessarily fall in love right away. I know that. I knew that. Um, yeah, but like the sort of like the love and the worry thing, like
Mhm.
that's something that surprised me for sure.
Oh,
Just
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just didn't, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't
I
think
guess
about
it's just
it.
it's the kind of thing that you can't really, I don't think you can really understand until you actually
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
have a human that is yours forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the point is, like, we can prepare the best for the postpartum period, but there's always something that will happen that we didn't expect.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think what's important is to have the most we can, the best we can, have realistic expectations, and say, you
Yes.
know what, we prepare, we want the best postpartum period
Yeah.
possible, we prepare for that, but at the same time we think, you know what, things might not go accordingly, things could be different than what I expect, and knowing in advance that fact help us, I think, to cope with the challenges that.
100%. Yeah, I would never want to tell someone like, "Oh, if you do all these things, you're gonna have an amazing
Yeah.
postpartum period," because that's not, obviously that's like completely not realistic. It's very much like, I think about it as like just like creating a birth plan, you know? There's a lot of focus in our culture around like preparing for birth, not as much for postpartum. And, you know, when we talk about making a birth plan, we look at everything that could possibly happen over the course of labor, and we think about our preferences. We think about what we would like to happen and how we would handle certain situations. Um, and so it's the same thing to do that for the postpartum
Yeah.
period. Think about what might happen, what are our preferences, what are our wishes and desires, and then what can we do to really set ourselves up and our support team to set everybody up for success. Yeah.
Yes.
But there's no guarantees.
Totally. Yes.
But
Like, as I
with a little
said,
bit of planning, as you said, like, yeah, like, it's, even if you do have challenges, you're going to better be able to handle them. Like, I know you talked about postpartum resiliency with Olivia Scobie, and that's
yes,
exactly why you want to make a postpartum plan, is to create that resiliency.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And as she said in the interview, because I asked, oh, with parents that have a really high level of resiliency, can they avoid to have postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety disorder? And I really liked her answer, where she says, maybe, but no, it can still happen. It can happen to any of us. And I think in my own experience, because I shared my own experience too, like with my first baby, I think we did prepare for the postpartum period. Like, my mom came, and I was privileged that my husband was working from home.
Yeah.
And then I knew that I could sleep, I could stay in bed, he would make the meals, my mom would help with the meals as well. So I think that there was some stuff in place for the postpartum period. And still, I did get a postpartum mood anxiety disorder. Like, I did get postpartum bipolar. So even if I was prepared, and I think my expectations were kind of, probably not super realistic, but I think that a part of it, like, was kind of realistic too. And then it still happened. So it can happen to any of us. So I think, as you said, the most important thing is to prepare ourselves to see that what are the challenges that could happen, and if they happen, then we are more prepared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. And
Absolutely.
that's what I did with my second maternity leave. Since with what happened with the first one, I prepared even more for my postpartum period, like trying to think the more and more about the support I could get. And then I knew what the symptoms could, like, what were my symptoms if I would get another postpartum mood disorder.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it did not happen the second time. I did. I did prepare just in case it could have happened a second, and there was a high risk of happening a second time. It didn't, but we were prepared for him. Like if it would have had a system in place, a good support system in place.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Talking about mental health. How do you take care of your mental health? I think we've mentioned different things, but I think that a lot when we try to put it more in the category of mental health. What do you think that you do like to take care of mental health?
Yeah, I don't know. I think initially I imagined that I would be doing a lot more like meditation and breathing and that kind of, and I do that stuff a little bit, but in reality, I don't actually do it that much. I don't have like a daily practice or anything like that. Honestly, thinking about this, I really feel that like making sleep a priority, like getting good sleep and eating really well. So like those self-care pieces, that's probably like, that's like the most important thing for me. So going back to the sleep thing that we were talking about, I did end up working it out. And I sleep with my baby right next to me every night. We share the bed, even though that's not what's officially recommended. It's going wonderfully, and we all get sleep. The whole family gets good sleep. And so I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't change anything there because I get really good sleep. And my partner takes the baby in the early morning, and I get like an extra hour or two of good rest in the morning to start my day. And I make sure that I take a shower every morning before he goes to work. And he usually helps me get my breakfast together so that I can actually get a good breakfast. And I spend time on the weekends to make food so that I have my lunch prepared. So I'm not trying to like cook lunch with the baby. Like it's just already. So I do a lot of work in that regard to make sure that I eat really well and take care of myself and get good sleep. And having that shower every day is really important to me too, just to feel good every day. I try to get out too, like every day. In the first couple of months, I didn't want to go out too much, but yeah, now that we're 5 months, like and we're going into the colder months, I think just like getting a little bit of fresh air and sunshine every day is really important. So, and a little bit of socialization too, with the outside world, with other adults. So I make it a goal for her and I to get out, even just for a little walk or a short errand, every single day. Yeah. So these are the kinds of things that I do that I think really help take care of me, like my mental health. Yeah.
And I think that you're very aware of what makes you feel good. Like you're sharing those strategies, and for some other parent, it could be different things that make them feel good, or like self-care could be different for anyone. I think sleep is something that for everyone would be something that super important.
We know that sleep or the lack of sleep is so correlated or connected to mental health, right? So I knew that obviously going into this, and so I knew that it was going to be really important that I figured that out, and I did. So I think I think everyone really should make sleep a priority and do what needs to be done to get like good sleep. So to take care of your mental health and your baby's mental health, like nobody's mental health should be sacrificed, basically. Everyone, that's how I feel.
Yeah, perfect. What's the best advice you would give to pregnant people preparing for the postpartum period? I know you probably have a lot of advice, but if you have to think,
that's a hard question. I mean, okay. Yeah. Somebody asked me that recently, actually, and I think the first thing that came to mind was I just told her, I said, the first thing I said was rest. Just rest.
Yeah.
Like, take it easy. Um, and then the second thing I said to her was, trust yourself.
Hmm.
Like, listen to yourself and your own instincts and try to just quiet all the noise coming from everyone else. Everyone else is trying to tell you what to do or how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. This was someone who
Yes.
like actively like was looking for advice. I don't just go giving advice to everybody.
No. I totally
But
understand.
yeah, we were on the streetcar here, public transit here, and she saw that I had a baby, and she was like, "Oh, like I don't have a baby yet, but like, what advice do you have for me?"
Oh, okay.
And I was like, "Yeah, just rest and trust yourself." Those were in the moment. Those were the two things that came up for me. Um, yeah, I think it's easy to just like have a baby and then get really frantic about everything and like, am I doing it right? And and it's like, yes, you are doing it right. Listen to yourself, trust yourself, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. And I like those two things because I think they are related. Like, if you spend time to rest a lot, like at the beginning and everything, you get some time to get to know your baby. And when
Yeah.
you
Yep.
when you know your baby, then you can trust those instincts that you have because you've spent time knowing your baby. That
Yeah.
like you can feel, oh, something's not right, or something makes her happy or makes him happy, or
Yeah.
yeah. So I think those
Yeah,
things.
you're spending time getting to know your baby and getting to know yourself as a new, again, going back to this new
Yeah,
identity, right?
yes, totally. Thank you. Any other thing you would like to say?
I just, yeah, it's been great chatting with you. Thanks for the opportunity. I think that there's probably more I could share. I mean, it's been really great for you to ask me these questions because I haven't maybe spent a lot of time reflecting on all of this
Mm.
just but I think I think actually that's a really useful tool as well. So I'll just add that, like, to have a journal, um,
Mm.
and just to like record your thoughts and your feelings every day. So I did that a lot in the first few weeks. I would just make notes like um,
Okay.
about how I was feeling, how the baby was doing, and um, I think that journaling is a really cool tool as well
Mhm.
to help
And I
process.
think, yes. And if things are not going super well or a parent is struggling, I think it's a good thing to journal to the emotions, what
Yeah.
we're going through, because if after
Yes.
you go get some professional support, it's always good to have those notes to
Yeah.
share. So the person who's helping you, like the support, I'm like therapist or whatever, counselor or social worker, whatever that is working,
Yeah.
to understand you better, those notes would be super important. Like or they will be useful,
Yeah.
to help, like to get the help. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's something that I didn't necessarily do when I went through something difficult. Well, actually, yes and no. Like I did when I was at the hospital, I did journal while I was at the hospital when I was admitted to hospital because of my manic and psychosis episode. And I did journal at some point, and I kept those things too. And I shared it with my psychiatrist back then. So I think it helped him to understand like what I was going through. I
Yeah.
didn't keep them journaling after like that much, and I think
Yeah.
it would have been helpful like to keep because I was seeing him on a regular basis and he was asking me some questions, how are you feeling, your emotions and everything. And I think it could have been even more useful if I would have kept on
Right.
you know.
I mean, it's not for. I mean, obviously, if you're not a journaler, if it's not going to be for everybody, like,
No.
but just to have some kind of outlet, I think, to get all of what's going on in here out,
Mm-hmm.
um, in some way.
Yeah,
And so for me, the easiest way to do that was just like with pen and paper.
that's good.
Actually, usually
Yeah.
when I was sitting, I would have like a daily sitz bath. So when I was like, literally when I was like sitting on my sitz bath is when I would like do my journaling usually.
Oh, that's good.
Because
Yeah.
that was my time, my like 10 minutes or whatever without the baby.
Yeah.
So that's usually when I did it.
Yeah, and that's part of a self-care strategy too. As we say, like just before, like for you, maybe journaling is not the best thing because that's not how you feel the most. You want to take time to do something else than journaling, maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that if you like to write, that's something that you can do. Yes. I know that you are kind of with your baby right now and busy being a mom to your baby, but I was wondering where people can reach you, like later on when you'll be back, if you're thinking about going back and be,
Yeah.
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 So if they want to reach out, I don't know, your website and they want to reach out to you, like.
Yeah. Well, my website is alexjameswellness.com. And yeah, I'm also active on, well, not very, very active right now, but you can check out my Instagram as well. And so that's also just at Alex James Wellness. And I share little photos and insights from this the postpartum world. Yeah.
Excellent. Sure. So what I can do, I can put it, if you're okay with that, like below the video, there's some
Please.
space
Yeah, yeah.
information.
Yeah.
Add those information below the video. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this discussion, Alex, and being
Thanks again for
authentic.
the opportunity.
Yeah, and being authentic in your experience too, and being willing to share with us. Very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for all the work that you do and all your interviews as well. Yeah. Yeah, it's
You're
an
welcome.
honor to chat with you.
It's my
Yeah.
pleasure. I love chatting with people and see how different, like we're all talking about postpartum mental health, postpartum, period, and to see how different it could be for everyone. And I think that's why I wanted to interview too, like to have different vision of what it could look like. Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
The postpartum period is unpredictable. You can prepare for it the best you can and still experience challenges such as postpartum mood and anxiety disorders. That can happen to any of us. An excellent preparation, good support, and coping strategies do not guarantee a great postpartum period, since many factors, such as physical, psychological, and social factors, can contribute to postpartum mental health disorders. But being well prepared, having realistic expectations, a good support system in place, and developing coping strategies can surely help and be supportive while going through a challenging experience, such as a postpartum mood and anxiety disorder. Don't hesitate to ask for help and get support if you are struggling. You deserve to feel better. You like my videos and you care about my mission to speak openly about postpartum mental health? You can help me make it happen by subscribing to my channel and sharing my videos with others. Just click on subscribe. I also created a Patreon account to help you contribute directly to my mission. Interested? Just click on the link below my video, which will direct you to my Patreon page. Then, click on Become a Patreon. Thanks to you, I can continue to invest time and energy to produce and then present you quality videos on a regular basis. Do not forget to take a look at the benefits you can get in exchange. I thank you for your interest in my channel, and I am already grateful to you for taking the time to look at its content and share it.